like I just said, had a vivid dream this weekend, and Charlie came to me and he told me that he was betrayed. And so for me, you don't have to believe that, but I do believe that. And it was the immediate sense I got, actually. And I don't know who exactly it is that betrayed him, but I also felt in the dream that it is soon going to be revealed, that it's actually inevitable that it is going to be revealed, that there is nothing and no one that is going to stop the truth from coming out, and it is going to have international consequences.
Okay. Well, one thing I can confirm from the get-go is that there is going to be a truth revealed that will indeed have international consequences, and it has no choice but to come out. And it's actually going to come out right now, out of my mouth. Here is that truth. Dear Conspiracy Candace, you need help. And I'm not talking about psychological help. I'm talking about the type of help that can only come from the Savior of mankind. You need a full-blown exorcism. You need deliverance. You need repentance. And you need at least 3 to 6 years off of that microphone as you come back to a semblance of sanity. That's what I'm going to recommend in the beginning here. Now, I believe that this prescription will do you well. And so off you go. Now, to my people out there, I want to address y'all about a very serious subject, actually. And it is not the subject of El Cucu La Candice, but instead it's about the tactics that are currently being used in order to take our attention away from where it needs to be. Let me explain. It was not more than 72 hours after Charlie was assassinated, and we're almost coming up to a month now. We are, as of today, October 8th. Yeah, that was September 10th. Almost exactly a month ago, which is crazy. 72 hours into Charlie being assassinated, we already had an influx of stories of what actually happened. And of course, if you were to go into the ecosystem of the Jew Hate Brigade, it was already a narrative of somehow, some way, the Jews did this. Maybe not the Jews, right? But a Jew, or, the head Jew, like Bibi Netanyahu or somebody of that nature, right? That was the narrative that was already being crafted, because in this audience's ecosystem, all roads lead to Jews. That's just simply what it is. It will always be that. They are the ultimate and only scapegoat. It is lazy journalism 101. But beyond just that, we have this larger, I guess, conversation is not even a good enough word, because it's become a full-blown conviction that people have that surely the person that was found as the number one suspect, the one who is currently in custody, Tyler Robinson, cannot be the perpetrator. It can't be him. He can't be the one who assassinated Charlie. Now, I can't sit here and pretend that I know all things, and I never will, right? I'm not an investigative journalist. I am not a FBI agent. I have never been in the CIA. I've never been a part of intelligence. Surprisingly, never been Mossad, right? Get accusation of Mossad all the time. Turns out that it's actually a little above my pay grade when it comes to those things. So, yeah, I'm not speaking from a position of I understand these things at the depth that those who do it for a living do. But most people are now convinced that they understand these things at the level that those who are literally assigned to this do. The average person believes they know as much about this case or any other case as Akash Patel. That's the level of haughtiness, of pride that we have reached in this modern age. And the dangers of that is not necessarily in people having opinions, right? The overarching danger is that we're now taking, as I said, our attention away from main things. Leftist violence is no secret. It was our main focus between 2015, 16 to around 2024. We understood the mission. It's the reason why we got our guy DJT into office. We understood that leftist propaganda had consumed the minds of many in this country, had essentially turned them into insane people, and they were actively looking to destroy the country and still are to this day. And it's not to say it started in 2015, 16. That's just when we, geared up and sort of, aimed to get a solution for this overarching problem of wokeness, or better off Marxist ideology that had morphed into this neo-Marxist sort of variant that we now see today as woke. So we knew who the enemy was, or at least how the enemy presented itself. Now, I believe that this is spiritual, inherently spiritual. I believe that the war is of unseen, that is then influencing the seen world. But nevertheless, it is evil, period. So we understood where evil was positioning itself. But what we didn't prepare ourselves for was that there would be an infiltration of this evil. And it's incredible because I remember seeing a Joe Rogan podcast interview some months back with Jordan Peterson, who I pray that you're praying for. First, pray for his salvation, and secondly, pray for his well-being, right? Pray for that man to know the true living God, and pray for him to be healed. If he is not healed in the physical, then at the very least, he will be back in the presence of God. But I digress. Jordan Peterson mentioned in that clip how there were narcissistic, cluster B personality type, Machiavellian types who were essentially looking to co-opt the MAGA movement, the Make America Great Again movement, the new conservative movement that was really a galvanizing of all sorts of people. Everybody from the Amish to the Native Americans in this coalition. I mean, you have a galvanizing we have not seen in American history, right? Maybe since like the inception of the Republican Party in 1854 or whatever it was. I don't think we've seen something of this nature where we all just came together for a massive shift in our culture. So that time came and passed, and then sure enough, we find ourselves in a space where you can't tell who the enemy is anymore because much of them have already infiltrated and they're a part of the quote unquote cohort, those who call themselves influencers and pundits and things of that nature, right? Those who are become the greatest detractors are on the inside as opposed to the outside. And they become the greatest defenders of those on the outside. Point in case, Tyler Robinson. Tyler Robinson, according to the information that we have gotten so far, and this is an active investigation, which means there are things we're not supposed to know because it would botch the entire investigation. There are people who can't say things for that reason. And the likes of El Cuckoo understand this. Cuckoo. They know this. They use this in order to drag these stories out so they can profit off of them for, whatever time being. So instead of one episode, you get 26 episodes because they get to drag it on basically until the official information comes out in the court of law, whatever else it is. But by then, they've already created a narrative. They've already spun it to a way where most people will never believe the official narrative, even if it's the truth. Which, again, I don't claim to know all things, but what I do know is that there was a high possibility, almost certainty, that a Charlie Kirk figure would be taken out by a radical leftist. It's kind of like if you hear about a terror attack, you could speculate and be accurate in your speculation that it was a jihadist. Why is this? Because jihadists have been responsible for a majority of the terror attacks. You can damn near assume it. Now, of course, the narrative we're being told and sold within the conspiracy circles and has made its way mainstream is that all roads lead back to the Jews. And what evidence do we have? He say, trust me, bro, right? Making false equivalencies and things of that nature. But in reality, if you were to look at, again, statistically, terror attacks are coming disproportionately from one space. Jihadists, who are what? Islamists. Where's that coming from? From this very specific cult known as Islam. Now, does that mean every single one of them would commit an atrocity? Absolutely not. But disproportionately, it's coming from this group of people. So when it comes to leftism, it's interesting to me how not a month before, it might have been 2 weeks, if not a week and a half prior to Charlie's assassination, there was the executing of little kids at a Catholic school who were in mass. They were in their church praying, and they were massacred by a radical leftist, period. Put out a video manifesto. All evidence pointed directly to them. I mean, granted, this person took their own life, so they were right there. There was no speculation around who this person was and what their motives were. Now let's jump to a Tyler Robinson. You have every reason to believe that this individual, who was a leftist, had been radicalized by a leftist cult. And I'm not speaking of a specific cult. I don't know what's specific. I just know the overarching leftist mentality or leftist ideology has spawned a cult-like, not even cult-like, I'm just going to call it what it is. It is a cult. It's a cult that has a subjective God. Let's just say that, right? An ever-changing God. Or maybe it's God as its own feelings and sentiments of oppression. But nevertheless, you have this kid who is openly in relationship with a transitioning individual, transformer, furry individual who is a radical leftist themselves. That is one of the individuals who was brought into this trial. Now, again, there are things we're not allowed to know as the public because it will botch the investigation. In times past, we understood that, but in the age of information, we feel that we are owed everything. It's like, I was recently watching, what is this docuseries? It's about basically taking down the mafia. And it speaks of Rudy Giuliani and how he put together the super team and used the RICO Act to essentially bring down the mob. There was a moment before they did the actual act of getting these guys into custody. And there was a phone call made by somebody at, I don't know if it was ABC, NBC News or whatever it was. And they said, look, we know you guys are about to, essentially lock up or arrest every single one of the mob bosses. We're going to air the story. And so the feds had to hurry up and do it immediately. Otherwise, it would botch the entire investigation. They were forced. Their hand was forced to do it early because of the news pundits that were so greedy and wanting a story that would sell. I hope y'all catch where I'm going with this one. There were those who were so focused on getting impressions, viewership, ratings, that they did not care if the entire investigation was botched. So you have a conspiracy Candace sit there and claim that all she wants is the truth and all she wants is for people to send in their information. TPUSA, you owe me information. FBI, you owe me information. Me, an individual who has zero vested interest in this case, besides the pretend plight of this is my friend, which if this were true, you would care enough to not obsessively make this about yourself while simultaneously making the job of the feds harder than it already is. There's already pressures of the actual case. There's already pressures on the family themselves who are now being targeted by people because of the likes of the Ian Cheeto Mustache Carrolls and the Cuckoo Candaces of the world, who are spinning these narratives that then create for a targeting towards these individuals, whether it is digitally or otherwise. And we know how insane some of these conspiracy theorist-minded individuals can be. And there is no sense of remorse because, honestly, there's no skin in the game, right? For Candace, this is just another story. For Carlson, this is just another story. For Carol, this is just another story. For MSNBC or MSDNC, CNN, whoever it is, it was just another story. It didn't matter that the feds were now tying the final threads into a case that had been built for years up to that point. A problem that had been there societally for decades. So here we are pinpointing leftism for the danger that it has been, and now attention is taken away from leftists and placed upon the convenient scapegoat. And I wouldn't care what scapegoat it was, honestly. I wouldn't. Because what matters is we're taking attention away from where it's supposed to be. Radical leftism is the biggest issue in America today. Period. These are people at home actively trying to destroy the country. And I didn't put jihadism there because I'll put them second, honestly, but it's because the infiltration of leftism is here. It's in our homes. It is with your children. It is with your nieces and nephews, your mothers, your aunties, sometimes your daddy, your white dude for Kamala. It is here. These people are unhinged. They're violent. Many of them are demonically oppressed, if not possessed fully. The issue is here. The one we need to be praying about and for is here. But instead, we direct our eyes to the wrong place. And I would wonder, maybe, just maybe, is it possible that the same person who would sit there and use their dream as a part of their investigative journalism, maybe, just maybe, that type of individual doesn't have anybody's best interest but their own? Is that possible? Is it possible that the so-called new media who's supposed to be telling you the truth, and I know I'm counted in that, but is it possible that there are people who are malicious actors? It's so easy to say, well, the person's been paid off, etc. That's why I'm careful around those. I only speak on it when I have receipts. I can make assumptions and assertions, but when I got receipts, like for Katarlson, we can bring those up. When I got receipts for Tim Dillon telling the world that he's been paid by Saudi Arabia, I can bring that up, right? When I can bring pictures and things that we can speculate on that behalf. But is it not only fair to think to ourselves that why is it that these same individuals seem to put no emphasis where Charlie actually did? Charlie spoke on leftist ideology more than any other ideology, period. Outside of his faith as a believer, he spoke on leftist violence, leftist unhingedness, and overall leftist propaganda. That's what he was on those college campuses tackling every single day. And then all of a sudden he found himself having to combat this narrative of Israel, 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 because people are being fed this counter sort of intelligence, this counteractive. Yeah, well, it is actually counteractive. It is contradictory to where we actually should be focused. I'm not saying you can have your focus on two places at the same time. But if you don't realize that you have a very serious problem in front of you and it is blaring and it is there, shout out to our president, shout out to Cash Money Patel for targeting Antifa. Antifa is a terror organization. A domestic terror organization based upon leftist ideals that have been essentially running our institutions for the last 50 to 60 years. And you have somebody who was a perfect victim of leftism in Charlie Kirk. And this was going to be an opportunity to finally put the nail in the coffin when it came to this issue of leftism. And now all of a sudden the attention is being put everywhere else. I really hope y'all are catching what I'm throwing. I didn't come here today to show a bunch of videos or whatever it is. I came to have a real conversation with y'all. The same one that has just been looming and ruminating in my mind these past couple of days, especially last night, where I kept getting up and I kept having this rumination of, man, what happens now to us actually taking care of the real problem? We're now funneling all of our attention and resources towards who? The Jews. Okay. Turning Point. So now we have to focus on Turning Point instead of leftism. Again, I'm not saying I know that Tyler Robinson did it. I speculate and assume because he's the person with the most evidence around him, even in admission in doing it. And if folks don't want to believe that, then why not speculate on everything else you've heard? You know, we get one set of text messages that's verified with zero context, and all of a sudden, wow, she's the truth teller of our time. What about the multitudes of times that she has lied? What about the multitude of times that she was wrong, misled? I mean, here's a short list. Claiming that Bibi Netanyahu offered Charlie $150 million. Never happened. Claiming Charlie wrote a scathing letter to Bibi about Gaza. Never happened. There was a letter, but it wasn't that one. Claiming Charlie, what is that? Clipping and distorting Tyler Robinson's video from the body cam footage, then lied about what he said. That was a lie of, I would say, omission. Said a Turning Point USA staffer grabbed the camera SD card to cover up the real shooter. Never happened. Invested a story that's supposed to be investigated or told a story that Bill Ackman staged an intervention for Charlie in the Hamptons. That was a lie. And those text messages were leaked themselves because, again, the likes of this individual are forcing people's hand. Not because she cares so much about the truth or a Katarlson, not because they care so much for what's actually happening, but instead they care about their own narrative. Now, my deepest assumption would be that those who are benefiting most from the destruction of America, China being number one on that list, you know, one that's oftentimes not spoken of. And I'm actually going to be releasing an interview I did with a new buddy of mine, Nima. So shout out to my boy Jay for the introduction. Nima and I get into the conversation of China and the botting that's taking place online, et cetera. Why you keep seeing these same narratives pumped out. And it's no surprise that China's been putting billions of dollars into our educational institutions, into our media, et cetera. Same way Qatar has. Same way, you know, many of the Arab nations, or the Arab League has, to be honest, right? The UAE, et cetera. But Qatar has been the head of that snake in the Middle East. You have Russia, who has a vested interest in our collapse, but China's top of that list. And I wouldn't help but, you know, speculate that China is benefiting greatly from this level of propaganda. I could not imagine, and yet I have not heard one time a episode dedicated to China, episode dedicated to Russia, and I'm speaking to Katarlson as much as anybody else, right? The man who sits next to these dictators and has the opportunity to ask the hard question, but never does. I believe that if Iranian TV is deeming your presentation of information as reliable, in the case of a Katarlson, in the case of, you know, I believe it was once with Fuentes, with the Candace, I believe that you are doing more for the enemy than you are doing for your supposed ally. The claiming of America first, but it is never America. Instead, it's a slandering of America. And not leftism, not the woke ideology, but instead those who are actively trying to do something positive. Those who are trying to fix the problems become the targets, including President Trump. All of a sudden, President DJT becomes the target. I guess I wouldn't be surprised because the same conspiracy Candace used to write articles trying to, I don't know, dissuade people from voting for Trump. I mean, we're just asking questions, right? An individual who was one of the co-founders of an application used to dox conservatives. Interesting that very same person seems to be doing as much for the leftist cause today as they were back then. So these are just the things that make you go, And I believe it is only fair that if we're going to have this onslaught of propaganda taking place, that we have to meet it with the same level of intensity as they do. In the same way, I told my Jewish friends out there, I said, look, they lie on you with the genocide lie. People are still using that lie to this day. which is absolutely foolishness. It is easily debunked 1,000 times over that the Israelis are genociding Palestinians. If they wanted to genocide them, they would have blown them out the water day one. Day one. They would have ended all of that. Instead, they're trying to play tactical warfare with the same people who want them all dead. That's what's happening. But I said, you got to stop having the conversation. You just got to start telling the truth. Say it. Speak it over and over and over again. Tell the facts over and over and over again. Never cease from telling the facts. Never cease from that part. And so I realize it is my place to do exactly that. Instead of focusing just specifically on these characters themselves, it is now on the narratives that are being constructed and where our focus is being placed and then refocusing us. Charlie warned us about the threat of leftist violence. As a matter of fact,
at the core of the left, at the core of a liberal, is someone that would use the sword if they had it. They are very violent people at their core. They always have been. They can't debate. They can't have conversation. So they'll resort to these tactics. They're going to do everything they possibly can to try to murder this movement because they can't beat us. So they're going to try to take weapons. And though we're very aware of that, I'm aware of it. We have to have full-time security. This is not a joke. This is who these people are.
So, Candace, let me ask you this. When you had that dream and Charlie came to you and allegedly stated that he had been betrayed, is it possible that the betrayal may actually be coming from the very individual being visited? Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Now, if you'd like to stay around, make sure to click that little subscribe button down there, or you can show some love by going to the description below and clicking on the button titled Buy Me a Coffee. Leave a little something there, or click on the Cash App. Leave a little something here. Till the next time, peace.
I've been up for hours, I've been up for days, you staring at the ceiling, I've been counting strays, you I've been in my feelings, I've been out of mind, I've been getting visions of the other kind. I've been up for weeks, I'm in the counting blessings over counting sheep. I can never be the type to limit when it comes to me. I used to be the pleaser for the people I ain't even need.